Hey guys, it's your girl Miss Annie J, and today I wanted to take a bit of time and go through my experience with PMDD and how I've been able to manage the condition over time, because for many years it was very difficult to live with, to the point where it became very debilitating. If you've read my blog, which I will provide the link for below, and you'll see what I've written pertains to my own personal experience and the different elements that I have put in place from, learning to cope with the condition, live with the condition. And I have provided a description of all of these things to help other women who deal with the condition, who are seeking for some kind of resolve, or they want to improve their quality of living and would like ideas as to what they can try. So that's the reason for this video, just to go into a little bit about my own experience living with PMDD. So I self-diagnosed back in 2015, which is quite some years ago now. However, I do believe that I was actually suffering from the condition from a much longer period, probably from when I started menstruation. Now, the one thing that really was bothersome was the fact that I felt like I was going through roller coaster emotions. So for 2 weeks of the month, I was myself, the version that people are used to, and for almost 2 weeks before I was due to have a period, I would then have emotional turmoil. So I would go from being here, in terms of like my mood, things going okay, I'm, just dealing with life's activities as they're coming along. And I would go from that and I would take like a really big dip. It was like an on-off button, if I had to simplify it. Now, for people who don't know what PMDD is, PMDD, the full term is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and it is a severe version of PMS, okay? So premenstrual syndrome. So if you're a lady who has mood issues, you might have some physical changes as well in the lead up before your period, or when you're on your period, then you may be familiar with PMS, okay? Because I think more women do deal with PMS than women who deal with PMDD. Now, PMDD is the really severe version of PMS, so to the point where it becomes debilitating, and it's always in the lead up before you actually have your period. Just to give like a clearer idea of PMDD, so I'm actually going to read this from my blog, and this information I took from the National Institute of Health. So what they've mentioned is that sufferers with PMDD have an increased sensitivity to their reproductive hormones during the 2 weeks before their period starts. Now, this sensitivity leads to alterations in the brain chemicals and neurological pathways that control one's mood and general sense of well-being. So exactly what that sensitivity is and what causes it has not yet been understood at the point of them writing this article. They've then gone on to say they have found that women with PMDD have an altered gene complex that processes the body's responses to hormones and stressors. It establishes a biological basis for the mood disturbances of PMDD. There's a working theory that it is the changes in hormone levels, not just the hormones themselves, right? Because I used to think that I was specifically sensitive to like estrogen, for example, right? But it's actually the changes in the levels of your hormones during that luteal phase leading up to your period that your brain is sensitive to, and for that reason you experience emotional fluctuation. So if it isn't clear, the mood changes are very difficult to control. Now, people have different ways of dealing with it. For me, what became really debilitating was the up and down. So I don't know about other women. As I got older, I felt that the condition was worsening, okay? Now, I believe that the reason for why I may have felt that way is because of the trauma caused by going through the condition on a cyclical basis. There's only so much that somebody can cope with. If you've ever suffered from any sort of mental health condition, so whether it's depression, anxiety, bipolar, with PMDD, it's like you're going through those conditions, but it's only for a certain period of time every month. So it's like switch comes on and then those symptoms start to manifest. Every woman is different and experiences different symptoms, but for me, I went through the anxiety, I went through the depression, the sadness. At that particular point in life, things just become difficult to cope with. Even normal daily activities, being able to cook for myself, being able to do my housework, my cleaning, being able to function to 100% effectiveness in my employment. These things became a real struggle, you know, and I would become extremely sensitive to almost anything. I would get upset very quickly. I would get frustrated and angry about things that do not warrant that level of reaction. So going through that up and down, it is very difficult to try and manage your relationships, family, your spouse, partner. It's all here, it's in your mind, and again, it's been triggered by the changes in your hormones that your brain is sensitive to. So let me give you an example of one of my darkest PMDD days. Uncontrollable tears. And then the thing is, I would then think, my life is awful. What have I done with myself for the past 10 years? And I would just question everything. And the thing is, the things that I'm questioning are not as bad as I feel at that point in time. All of a sudden, everything just seems smeared by the lack of self-worth that I would feel at the time. I mean, my confidence would just hit rock bottom. Remember, I'm referring to the weeks when the PMDD switch is on, okay? I look in the mirror and all of a sudden, I feel so unattractive. Although nothing has actually changed. I would feel a complete loss of self-worth. It was such a dark time to go through, month in, month out. You become so exhausted with the roller coaster of emotion, with feeling the way you feel, that you even start to contemplate that life has no meaning. And you go through this every month. I almost became quite a social recluse. Now, you wouldn't think that watching my videos and what have you, because I've managed to really work on myself, do things to improve my well-being throughout the entire month, including when I would be going through PMDD. And it has made such a monumental difference. Before I got to that place, it was a struggle. It was difficult. You know, you reflect back on negative experiences in life. Every bad thing that you can think of that you have been through in your life, they start to resurface during these 2 weeks. And then that makes you feel worse than you're already feeling. You have to put on an act, is the easiest way that I would describe it, because you have to present yourself as if you're feeling okay. So think about someone that suffers from clinical depression, for instance, or a mental health condition that they have on a long-term basis. You go through these same feelings on a cyclical part-time basis, and then you have to manage your life in between. Where do you go from there? For people out there who you have a balanced well-being, you feel good, you're getting on with life, in terms of how you're feeling emotionally, you have consistency there. Just imagine having someone press a button and all of a sudden you're down, sad, depressed, anxious, and you're contemplating wanting to take your life. And you experience that only for a certain amount of days every single month. That is what women with PMDD experience. And for me, I had to push myself. And when you're going through this condition and you have to do things in your life as you would when you're not going through the condition, it can, in many cases, make you feel worse. Because you have to put so much effort despite how you're feeling. And that just adds to the difficulty of trying to cope with the condition itself. So if I haven't made it clear enough by this point, this condition is not to be taken lightly. It is a struggle for women who deal with the condition. If you're listening to this and you're somebody who suffers from PMDD, just know that you are not by yourself and your life has meaning. You are valuable. On the days that the PMDD is on, you may feel the complete opposite, and I can completely understand that because I have been that woman. I would never have dreamed that I would be able to actually live out my passions that I have for life. The great and amazing thing is that it is now gaining so much awareness. This condition is not specific to women in a certain community. It affects women all over the world. So just be encouraged and don't lose heart. I know it's difficult. I know it feels like nobody would understand. You might feel isolated. You might feel that you're alone in this. You are not alone in this, okay? There are so many of us who deal with this condition, and you can still live a fulfilled life irrespective. So please do check out my blog, have a read. I will cover now a few of the things that I have been able to do to help increase my zest for life. I've gotten to a place where I've built a consistent level of moving forward. I don't give the condition as much attention as I used to. I feel like the brain is probably the most powerful tool of your body. It can really influence the way you do things, what you choose to do, all of that. It all starts in your mindset. And my whole thing was reprogramming my way of thinking about the condition. I think about, what I want to do, the plans that I'm working towards. I get involved in the things that I'm passionate about, and I do them even if I do not feel like it. And there were just little steps that I took to start to help myself to manage the condition. The first thing to help push you along, speak to people in your life about it, your close loved ones. Let them know that it's a condition that you deal with on a monthly basis. Knowledge is power. And when I explained it to my family, even when I read about it, I read somebody else's blog and I was like, this is me. This is what I've been dealing with, and it was such a relief to read that it wasn't just me. I thought maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's bipolar. And actually, the whole time it was this condition that I was dealing with. So I had that eureka moment. I read that blog, and then, it explained my patterns of behavior that I hadn't really noticed. But then I started to diarize the moods that I was going through. And funnily enough, that is how I was able to link what I was dealing with to my menstrual cycle, because I realized that it was always in the run up before my period, roughly about 10 to 14 days prior. And then I figured that, wow, this is something that I am clearly dealing with. And then on reading all the symptoms, I was dealing with almost everything on the list that was on there, especially the emotional symptoms. Literally, I was like, this just looks like a description of what I go through regularly. So it's important to let people know. Family, friends, your spouse, kids, it's good to explain it to them. And like I said in my blog, if you have to send them the link to my blog so that they can read it from a second-hand perspective, then do that. Because in effect, it's like them having a witness statement to what you're explaining to them so that they can find out more about the condition. Now, the other step to dealing with the condition is I would encourage you to get medical assistance. You see your GP, your doctor, your gynecologist, because dealing with this by yourself, for a lot of us, it is difficult. I implemented the changes in my personal life in addition to the assistance that I received from a medical practitioner. So the other thing that I talk about in my blog is the lifestyle changes that I made, okay, that have helped to improve the condition as well. So for example, the first thing that I did was using ovulation or menstruation apps where you can chart your cycle and things like that. That just helped me to figure out the weeks that would not be as good as, my usual weeks. It helped me to sort of plan ahead, which made my life more manageable. Do little things that made a big difference. So like I said before, I wouldn't cook. I wouldn't even go and do shopping. But yeah, food was the last thing on my mind. I would eat a little bit to survive, but that would be it. And then the things that I did eat were probably really unhealthy as well, because I'd be craving salt and sugary foods. So what I started to do was meal prep. I would buy bulk in the weeks where things are fine, and then I would season my food, bag them in portions enough to last me for a couple of weeks, especially through PMDD week, and then I'd freeze it. And then all I do during the PMDD weeks is defrost and cook. And then the other thing I would do is spring clean as often as I could, because during PMDD weeks, no go. I'm not interested in doing my cleaning. So what I would do is I'd do a spring clean. Once I've done my spring clean, it would just be a matter of maintaining. So then that would also make life manageable during the PMDD weeks. Another major thing that I would say is diet. Now, I cannot stress enough. I mean, there's so much information out there. We hear it all the time. You are what you eat. For us women who deal with this condition, that is so important. I found that there was a sensitivity to like wheat, for example. If I ate a lot of bread, I realized that there would be a dip in my mood, and then it would be even worse during my PMDD weeks. So I started to eliminate foods that I felt had some sort of negative effect on my life. So now I don't eat bread every day, okay? I eat it maybe twice, maybe 3 times a week. And then things like sugary foods, fast foods. Now, this was not, obviously I had a point where I wanted to lose weight and stuff like that. But at this point, this was because I needed to do something, because I needed to see change. I needed to see that I could improve, that I could feel better. And if that meant that I had to give up some simple pleasures that would last for a moment but affect me for a while, then I had to start eliminating these. And I cannot stress enough, ladies, please check what you're putting in your body, because we're already sensitive to the changes in our hormones, and that in itself, we may have sensitivity to foods. But there's certain things that you may feel that, do you know what, maybe I should try to really minimize my intake of that. So you don't have to stop eating them. That's not what I'm saying, okay? So I started to swap sugar for honey, yeah? I swapped dairy for, like for example, cow's milk for oat milk, because there were things I ate that I just felt, I eat this and I can tell that I feel different. And doing that has made such a big difference to how I feel when I'm going through my PMDD. Now, you'll see in my blog that I mentioned that this one was not going to be popular at all, alright? But implementing some sort of physical activity, so helpful. Ladies, I was the laziest person. Like, I did not enjoy any type of physical activity. I did not like stairs. I did not like walking. I did not like any sort of, I tried the gym thing and I was like, this is not for me. But again, I got to the point where I was like, if I want to see things improve, I need to start doing things that I have never done before. And that was one of my reasons for really exploring my fitness. I always hear that, being involved in physical activity releases endorphins. It helps with your well-being and what have you. So I thought, I'm going to give it a go. I just was doing what I could manage. So if it is literally 5 minutes of activity that you end up doing, it's 5 minutes more than what you used to do. And that in itself is progress. Honestly, I feel that the endorphin rush that I get and how long that lasts me throughout the day from doing a 30-minute regime, which I do 2 to 3 times a week, in addition to the changes that I made with my diet, has made a world of difference. I can't say that, okay, it cured PMDD, but it just made it so much more manageable, okay? And any sort of relief for me, even if it was just a small bit of relief, it was a big deal. So I encourage you to just pick up a small activity, no matter how small. Like I said, you start small and just build bit by bit, just so that you can build that consistency. If you try and do it all at once, all you're going to do is put yourself off, okay? But if you do something that is manageable, you're more likely to stick with it on a long-term basis. And for those of us who are still of menstruating age, you know, that could be for a long period of time. So we need to build that level of discipline and consistency. Please give it a try if you can. Now, the other thing that I would say, and this was one that kind of caught me by surprise, that I didn't think that, okay, it would really make a difference, but invest in your hobbies. Whatever you enjoy doing, do more of it. The reason why I say this is when you're vested in the things that you love, you're thinking less about the things that bother you, and you're thinking more about your time of enjoying your passion. And for those of us with PMDD, it is a really lovely distraction, because you don't want to just be focusing on the PMDD. Have something else to think about that makes you smile, that makes you happy. Get more involved in it, okay? And that will also help make a difference. The one thing I have found with managing this condition is that the more I do from different aspects, eating right, the fitness, my hobbies, the more I bombard it, the less it affects me. The less you're giving it your energy and attention. Because sometimes feeding it will just make you feel worse because you're just thinking about it all the time. No, pick up your hobby. Start to do it and be heavily vested in it, okay? And that, it really helps. I can't explain, you know, any more than I have, but it does. It's really helped me in combination with everything else. Now, one item that my mum told me about was turmeric water. 1 teaspoon in half a glass of water. All I can say on this one is Google, YouTube search, and find out for yourself. I mean, turmeric has so many health benefits, not just in relation to PMDD, but it helps with so many other areas of the physical, you know, your physical body. PMDD is just one of them. And I was taking that for the 2 weeks before PMDD. By the time the PMDD week reached, I was like, oh, this is odd. I haven't had a massive dip. So I noticed that it makes a difference, okay? And again, the more you do, the better you're going to feel. You have to go the extra mile. Unfortunately, ladies, that is how our body is working, right? Compared to others, we've got to work with what we have. We have to put in so much more effort than, you know, your regular Joe. Everything that we can do to bombard it, that is what is going to work. And that is what has worked for me. Now, the medical treatments that I go through in my blog, right? Now, these are all things that I have used in the past. The first was cognitive behavioural therapy. One thing that I really liked about CBT, it is effectively a boot camp in retraining your mind and your way of thinking. And that was important for me because of, like I mentioned earlier, the trauma that the condition had caused. I felt that I needed to retrain how I thought about myself, how I thought about the condition, how I thought that it affected me. It was almost like I was able to press a reset button in my way of thinking. And I was like, right, let's start from scratch, because yes, this condition has been traumatizing, but I am in no way going to allow the trauma caused by the condition to affect the way my future looks. I would highly recommend cognitive behavioural therapy. It is definitely worth exploring. Whilst I was starting to make all these other lifestyle changes, it was just perfect timing. Now, the other thing that I do mention is the mini pill. The mini pills that I have tried are Desogestral and Cerazette. I'm not really a fan of pills, I'll be honest. I don't really like to put things in my body like that are chemical and things like that. Anyway, this was part of my medical appointments. So they were trialing and putting me on these different types of pills. This is what worked for me. It needs to be tailored to your individual needs. For me, the mini pill worked really well. It stopped ovulation, so I didn't have periods at all. And obviously, as you can imagine, no periods, no PMDD, right? Because I wasn't ovulating or what have you. I mean, I don't know the complete science behind it, but all I can say is that I never had any PMDD days. Like, I was feeling myself consistently all the time. The reason why I stopped taking the mini pill is because I could not stop eating. I was hungry all the time, and even though I was eating food that wasn't necessarily, you know, junk food or bad, I was just eating too much, because too much of anything is not always good for you, right? So I was just eating excessively, and I started to put on weight, and I thought I need to stop taking this pill. The way I saw it was that obviously I didn't want to be on the pill for the rest of my life, because at some point I would like to have kids and stuff like that. And when I would stop taking the pill, if the condition returned, which would be likely, I would now be overweight. And then when the condition is in play, I would make my weight gain a focus for me to start sinking back into a dark hole, okay? So that was my personal reason for stopping taking it. Other than that, I felt like this pill was great. And again, I say everyone's different. Some women may hate this pill, but for me it works. So these are just, I'm throwing out the ideas, okay, that you can maybe explore, try for yourself, and see how you get on. The one thing I will say is don't give up trying, okay? Don't give up trying. I know it's difficult because you try something new and you have to like wait for a whole cycle to see how effective the changes that you're making actually are to the condition. So I understand that you may feel disheartened at certain points, you may get frustrated, you may start to lose patience, but do not give up, all right? It's taken me a while to figure out all these things that have helped make my life better. And that's the reason why I've shared everything, because I want to be able to fast track other women to potential, you know, solutions for living with the condition, all right? So just take your time. Just remember that even though this might not work, you're working towards finding something that does work, okay? And that in itself is motivation enough to keep you going. And then the other thing that I tried was Evorel patches. Now, as far as I'm aware, what I had read was these are usually prescribed to women on the menopause, all right? So I was prescribed with Evorel 50, and the way my gynecologist explained it to me, it balances your hormones, okay? Now, as we've read, your brain is sensitive to the change in hormones. So it balancing my hormones, I have found it very useful. Now, the patches are the one medical treatment that I still use to this day. I don't use it every single month because all the other changes that I've made with my lifestyle have actually made such a monumental difference that I don't always feel that I need it. However, if I feel like a 1 month is particularly a bit challenging, then I would just slap on a patch, okay? And the good thing is, you know, you put on one patch and you wear it for about a week before you have to change it. The only negative thing that I would say about it, the times when I was using it consistently, I didn't feel like it worked every single month. There might have been the odd month where I felt like my PMDD was more powerful than the patch because I would forget that I'd even put it on, all right? But then there were also months where I'd put it on and I would just continue as normal. There's no dip, no change in my emotions and my sensitivity and mood and things like that. So again, it's just another idea, something that has worked for me. And like I say, it's the one item that I still use today, and it's worked really well, okay? So again, all of this is just to throw out ideas, all right? Because it has been a journey, ladies. It's taken time for me to get to a place where I feel like, okay, I'm improving, things are better, and now I'm at a place that I feel consistently normal more than I feel PMDD down. That for me is enough, all right? Now the work doesn't stop. I've been consistent in, you know, my eating better, my working out, you know, involved in my hobbies. One of my hobbies is I love to write, which is why I put my blog together, and just involving myself in things that I love, distracting myself, spending time with my family, my friends. With PMDD, you have to be relentless because of how severe the condition is. You have to be relentless in what you're trying, but just never give up. You are worth all of this effort. As much effort as it sounds like, you are worth the effort. Do not give up on trying to improve your life with PMDD. Okay, ladies? I almost gave up, and I am still standing years later, and I have made this video to encourage my fellow PMDD sisters that are out there. This condition does not have to define who you are as a person. All the mistakes that you may have made in the past because of the condition, you know, trust me, I get it. Sometimes you might have wild spending. You might get yourself in situations that you had no business being in. Like, I completely understand. You have to love yourself, forgive yourself for those mistakes. Remember, a condition can take over like that and make you do things that are just not your typical behavior and character. So just continue to love yourself, continue to invest in your well-being, continue to invest in your improvement of the condition, and just know that I am here supporting you from a distance wherever you are. You're not by yourself, okay? There are so many of us, and just stay strong. We are in this together. So I hope you found this useful. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And until my next video, bye.